The baby should have died before sunrise. The storm was unlike anything the kingdom had seen in decades. Snow swallowed roads. Trees bent beneath the weight of ice. Even wolves hid from the cold. Yet beneath a dying pine tree, a newborn girl fought for every breath. Her cries were weak, barely audible. Wrapped in torn cloth soaked by snow, she trembled against the frozen earth. No mother held her. No father searched for her. No one was coming. Because the woman who had given birth to her had walked away deliberately, step by step, without once looking back. The infant's tiny fingers turned blue. Her heartbeat slowed. The storm began covering her small body with snow. The world was preparing to bury her. Then a shadow emerged from the blizzard. Massive, silent, terrifying. Golden eyes glowed through the darkness. Alpha King, the most feared wolf in the north. The giant black wolf approached the child. For a moment, the storm itself seemed to pause. Then something impossible happened. A silver crescent-shaped mark suddenly glowed beneath the infant's skin. The Alpha King's eyes widened. Fear crossed his face. Real fear. Because that mark belonged to a bloodline that should have vanished 500 years ago. A bloodline kings once feared. A bloodline queens once died protecting. The child wasn't supposed to exist. And if anyone discovered she was alive, the kingdom would drown in blood. The Alpha King shifted into human form beside the freezing infant. Snow whipped against his face as he knelt. For a long moment he simply stared. The glowing mark on the baby's shoulder pulsed softly beneath her skin. A crescent moon surrounded by ancient symbols. A symbol Rowan had only seen once before. Inside forbidden royal records. Records locked beneath the palace. Records that described the first wolf queen. His heart pounded. Impossible. The entire bloodline had been exterminated centuries ago. Every heir hunted. Every descendant executed. No survivors. At least that was what history claimed. Yet the child lying before him proved history had lied. The baby let out a weak cry. Rowan immediately removed his fur cloak and wrapped her inside it. The moment he lifted her into his arms, the mark stopped glowing. As if it trusted him. As if it recognized him. The realization unsettled him. The Alpha King feared almost nothing. But this frightened him. Because only one possibility remained. Someone had hidden an heir. And someone else had discovered the truth. Which meant the infant wasn't abandoned because she was unwanted. She was abandoned because someone wanted her dead. Rowan looked around the forest. His wolf senses expanded. Searching. Listening. Hunting. Nothing. No scent except snow. No tracks except those already buried. Whoever left her had planned carefully. The storm erased all evidence. The baby suddenly grabbed one of his fingers. Teeny. Fragile. Trusting. Something tightened inside Rowan's chest. A feeling he had not experienced since losing his Luna years earlier. He should leave her. For the kingdom's safety. For his own safety. For everyone's safety. Instead he pulled the infant closer. No, he whispered. The wind carried the word away. You won't die tonight. And with that, the most feared Alpha King in the north carried the child toward home. The palace slept when Rowan returned. Only a handful of trusted guards witnessed his arrival. None questioned him. None dared. Inside the royal chambers waited Queen Astrid. Though no longer Rowan's mate, she remained his closest advisor. Astrid looked up from her desk, then froze, because Rowan was holding a baby. What happened? Rowan closed the door. The impossible. He carefully pulled back the cloak. The moment Astrid saw the mark, all color vanished from her face. She staggered backward. No. Rowan nodded grimly. That's what I thought. Astrid stared at the child. For several seconds she couldn't speak. Then tears appeared in her eyes. The bloodline survived. You recognize it. Astrid slowly nodded. I've spent years studying the old records. She touched the baby's cheek. The first queen's descendants. Silence filled the room. Heavy, dangerous, the kind of silence that changed destinies. Finally Astrid spoke. Does anyone else know? No. Good. Rowan frowned. You sound relieved. Astrid looked at him. Because if the council discovers this child exists, they'll kill her before sunrise. Over the following days, Rowan secretly investigated. He searched villages, interrogated spies, reviewed reports. Nothing. No missing infant. No suspicious deaths. No clues. It was as though the child had appeared from nowhere. Meanwhile Astrid cared for the infant. She named her Lyra, a name meaning moonlight. The baby quickly became attached to both of them. Though Rowan rarely showed emotion, he found himself visiting her room daily, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times, watching her sleep, watching her laugh, watching her grow stronger. Months passed, then years. Yet danger never disappeared. Because unknown eyes were searching. Far beyond the kingdom, a hooded woman stood before a fire. Lady Selene, Lyra's mother. She stared into the flames. A messenger knelt before her. We searched the forest. And no body was found. Selene closed her eyes. Fear spread through her. A child survived. After all these years, a child survived. And if Lyra lived long enough to learn the truth, everything Selene sacrificed would be destroyed, including the terrible secret she had spent years hiding. A secret powerful enough to shatter the kingdom. Back in the palace, 6-year-old Lyra raced through the halls laughing. Servants smiled when she passed. Guards secretly adored her. Even Rowan occasionally allowed himself a small smile. But one evening everything changed. Astrid entered Rowan's study carrying an ancient document. Her hands trembled. Rowan immediately noticed. What is it? Astrid placed the parchment on the desk. The mark. Rowan's expression darkened. What about it? Astrid looked directly into his eyes, then delivered the words that changed everything. She's not merely descended from the first queen. Rowan slowly stood. A chill ran through the room. Astrid swallowed. According to this record, Lyra is the rightful heir to the throne. And neither of them noticed the shadow listening outside the door. The shadow outside Rowan's study disappeared before either Alpha noticed it. Small feet raced down the corridor. A servant boy. Too young to understand what he had heard. Too frightened to stay. By sunrise, the information had already spread through whispers. Not the entire truth. Only fragments. Dangerous fragments. Hidden child. A royal secret. Nair. No one knew the details. But rumors were like sparks in dry grass. Once they appeared, fire always followed. Years passed. Lyra grew into a beautiful young woman. Silver hair. Storm gray eyes. A quiet strength she didn't realize she possessed. Most people inside the palace knew her only as an Omega servant. Nothing more. Nothing less. She cleaned hallways. Delivered messages. Organized records. Served meals during council gatherings. The nobles rarely looked at her. When they did, it was usually with contempt. To them, Omegas existed to obey. Nothing else. Lyra accepted the insults with silence. Not because she was weak. Because she had learned something important. People revealed their true nature when they believed someone beneath them was watching. And Lyra watched everything. One morning, she carried documents through the eastern corridor when 3 noblewomen blocked her path. The leader smiled cruelly. Lady Verona. Daughter of a powerful Alpha family. What do we have here? Her friends laughed. A servant Omega. Verona stepped closer. Tell me, Lyra. She tilted her head. Have you ever wondered why nobody wants you? The words struck harder than a slap. Because they touched an old wound. Lyra never knew her parents. Never knew where she came from. Never knew why she always felt different. But she refused to show pain. I have work to do. Verona grabbed the documents from her hands. Pages scattered across the floor. The noblewomen laughed again. Lyra clenched her fists. Not from anger. From humiliation. She spent the next several minutes gathering papers while expensive shoes deliberately stepped on them. When she finally escaped, her chest hurt. Not from the work. From loneliness. The same loneliness that had followed her since childhood. That evening she climbed to her favorite place in the palace. An abandoned tower overlooking the kingdom. It was peaceful there. Quiet. Far away from judgment. She sat beside the window and watched snow fall across the rooftops. The kingdom looked beautiful from above. Almost magical. Sometimes she imagined belonging somewhere within it. Having a family. Having someone who truly cared. The sound of footsteps interrupted her thoughts. Lyra turned. Alpha King Rowan stood in the doorway. She immediately rose. "Your Majesty." Rowan nodded. Neither spoke for several seconds. That happened often. Their relationship had always been unusual. The Alpha King treated her better than most servants. Yet he never explained why. Sometimes she caught him watching her. Studying her. Protecting her. Almost like, well, she pushed the thought away. Impossible. Rowan approached the window. "You seem troubled." Lyra laughed softly. "Do I?" "Yes." Silence stretched between them. Finally she asked the question she had carried for years. "Why do you always help me?" Rowan froze. Only for a second. But she noticed. The Alpha King stared into the snowfall. Because he knew the truth. Because every day became harder. Because every year increased the danger. Yet he couldn't tell her. Not yet. "Because," Rowan finally said, "some people are worth protecting." Lyra looked away. Her heart tightened unexpectedly. Before she could respond, Rowan left. And the question remained unanswered. What Lyra didn't know was that enemies had already begun searching for her. Far beyond the kingdom borders. Inside a hidden fortress. A group of cloaked figures gathered around a stone table. Ancient symbols glowed across its surface. One of the figures placed a map upon the table. The mark appeared again. Another looked up sharply. "Where?" "The Northern Kingdom." Silence followed. Cold. Dangerous silence. The leader slowly removed his hood. A scar crossed his face. The air survived. The room instantly filled with tension. Years ago they believed the bloodline ended forever. Now evidence suggested otherwise. And if the rightful heir claimed her inheritance, everything they built would collapse. The leader's eyes narrowed. "Find her. And when we do." His answer came without hesitation. "Kill her." Days later, fate took another step toward disaster. Lyra was working inside the royal archives. Dust covered the shelves. Ancient books filled the room. Most servants hated archive duty. Lyra loved it. Books contained answers. And answers were something she desperately wanted. While organizing records, she discovered an old section hidden behind a loose bookshelf. Curiosity pulled her forward. Inside rested several ancient scrolls. One accidentally slipped from the shelf. The parchment opened across the floor. Lyra stared. At first she didn't understand what she was seeing. Then her breath caught. The image showed an ancient queen. Silver-haired, gray-eyed, beautiful, powerful, and strangely familiar. Very familiar. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. Lyra slowly touched the illustration. Her fingers trembled. Why did the woman look like her? A sudden voice interrupted. "Where did you find that?" Lyra spun around. Queen Astrid stood in the doorway. For the first time in years, fear flashed across Astrid's face. Real fear. Lyra pointed toward the hidden shelf. "I didn't mean to." Astrid immediately took the scroll. Too quickly. Too nervously. And Lyra noticed. "What is it?" Astrid forced a smile. "An old story." "Then why are you afraid?" Astrid froze. The question lingered. Heavy. Dangerous. Because Lyra was finally beginning to notice the lies surrounding her life. Before Astrid could answer, another voice echoed through the archive. "Stranger." An elderly traveler standing near the entrance. No one had seen him enter. His eyes landed on Lyra, then widened. The old man's expression changed instantly. Recognition. Disbelief. His gaze moved toward her shoulder, toward the place hidden beneath her clothing, toward the birthmark. The old man whispered 3 words. 3 words that made Astrid's blood run cold. She is alive. The room fell silent. Astrid stepped between him and Lyra immediately. The traveler slowly dropped to one knee. Tears filled his eyes. And then he said something that neither woman expected. "My queen." Lyra stared at him, confused, terrified, because she had no idea why a complete stranger had just called her that. And before anyone could stop him, the old man revealed a symbol identical to the one hidden on Lyra's shoulder. A crescent moon, glowing faintly beneath his skin. The same mark, the same bloodline, the same impossible secret. And for the first time in her life, Lyra realized she might not be who she thought she was. The old man's words echoed through the archive long after he stopped speaking. "My queen." Lyra stood frozen. Astrid stood between them like a shield. The traveler's eyes shimmered with emotion. Not the emotion of a stranger. The emotion of someone who had spent years searching, years hoping, years believing a miracle was possible. And now he was staring at that miracle. Alive, breathing, standing only a few feet away. Astrid quickly escorted Lyra from the archives. Not once did she explain what had happened. Not once did she answer a single question. The silence frustrated Lyra more than any insult she had ever endured. Because deep inside she already knew something. Everyone around her was hiding something. Rowan, Astrid, the strange traveler, all of them. Somehow, the secret involved her. That night sleep refused to come. Lyra lay awake staring at the ceiling. Questions filled her mind. Who was the traveler? Why had he called her queen? Why did Astrid look terrified? Most importantly, who was she really? The answers felt close. Close enough to touch. Yet every time she reached for them they slipped away. Before dawn finally arrived, a palace messenger knocked on her door. "Lyra." He sat up. "Yes. The Royal Council requests your presence." Her stomach tightened. The Royal Council never summoned servants. Never. The grand hall buzzed with excitement. Hundreds of nobles filled the chamber. Golden banners hung from stone walls. Crystal chandeliers illuminated polished floors. The atmosphere felt different. Anticipation lingered everywhere. Lyra entered cautiously. Immediately she noticed Alpha Prince Kael standing beside the throne. Powerful. Broad-shouldered. His dark hair fell across sharp features. Every noblewoman in the kingdom dreamed of becoming his Luna, including many who already despised Lyra. Kael barely glanced her way, which was normal. They had crossed paths before, yet never spoken beyond formal greetings. Something strange happened the moment Lyra entered. A sharp sensation shot through her chest, like lightning. Brief, powerful, unexpected. She stopped walking. Her heartbeat accelerated. Across the room Kael suddenly stiffened. His eyes snapped toward her. For a single second neither moved, neither spoke, neither understood. But both felt it. Something ancient, something primal, something impossible to ignore. Then the feeling disappeared, leaving confusion behind. Alpha King Rowan stepped forward. The annual moon ceremony begins tonight. Excitement erupted throughout the hall. Every unmated wolf understood the significance. The moon ceremony revealed destined mates. One night each year. One chance to discover the person chosen by fate. The person your wolf would recognize above all others. The person capable of completing your soul. For many wolves, it was the most important night of their lives. Lyra had never expected much from it. Who would choose an Omega servant? Certainly not someone powerful. Certainly not someone important. She planned to attend quietly, then return to work. Nothing more. Fate had other plans. As darkness fell, the kingdom gathered beneath the full moon. Thousands filled the sacred clearing. Torches flickered. Music echoed through the trees. The air crackled with anticipation. One by one wolves stepped forward. Mate bonds appeared. Some cried. Some laughed. Some embraced. The celebration continued for hours. Then Lyra's turn arrived. She walked into the center of the clearing. Nervous whispers followed. Many nobles smirked openly. They expected nothing. An Omega servant wasn't important enough to attract attention. Lyra raised her eyes toward the moon. Silver light washed across her skin. The world suddenly became silent. Completely silent. Then it happened. Pain exploded through her chest. A brilliant silver thread burst from her heart. Gasps erupted from the crowd. The glowing bond stretched across the clearing. Past hundreds of wolves. Past nobles. Past warriors. Until it connected with one man. Alpha Prince Kael. The entire kingdom froze. No one breathed. No one moved. Because the impossible had happened. The future Alpha King had been matched with an Omega servant. Shock rippled through the crowd. Then outrage. Nobles immediately began shouting. Impossible! There must be a mistake. An Omega cannot become Luna. Lyra barely heard them. Her eyes remained locked on Kael. Because for the first time in her life, she felt seen. The mate bond flooded her with warmth, comfort, belonging. Oh, everything she had searched for. Everything she had dreamed about. Kael felt it too. She could see it. His expression revealed undeniable recognition. His wolf knew. His soul knew. His heart knew. Fate had chosen her. For several seconds Kael simply stared. Then something unexpected happened. His wolf surged forward. Powerful. Instinctive. Protective. Every alpha present felt it. The urge to claim. The urge to shield. The urge to stand beside his mate. Hope blossomed inside Lyra. Maybe everything would finally change. Maybe she would finally belong somewhere. Maybe she wasn't alone after all. Then she noticed Beta Damien. Standing beside Kael. Watching. Smiling. Not a warm smile. Not a friendly smile. Calculating smile. The smile of a man already planning something. Later that evening Damien found Kael alone. The prince stood on a balcony overlooking the celebration. Still shaken. Still processing. Damien approached carefully. You seem troubled. Kael laughed bitterly. Troubled? His gaze remained fixed on the moon. My mate is an Omega servant. Damien remained silent, allowing doubt to grow. A technique he had mastered years ago. Finally he spoke. The council won't accept it. Kael clenched his jaw. I know. The nobles won't accept it. Silence. The kingdom won't accept it. Kael looked away. Because every word was true. Damien stepped closer. There are rumors. Kael frowned. What rumors? The beta lowered his voice. Dangerous rumors. Kael's expression darkened. Explain. Damien pretended hesitation. Then delivered the first lie. They say Lyra has been meeting strangers. Another lie. They say she seeks power. Another. They say she hides secrets. The final lie landed hardest. They say she isn't who she pretends to be. Kael stared into the darkness. Doubt slowly replaced certainty. Exactly as Damien intended. Meanwhile Lyra sat alone in the palace gardens. Unable to stop smiling. For the first time since childhood, happiness felt possible. The future suddenly looked brighter. The loneliness that haunted her seemed smaller. Further away. She touched the place above her heart where the mate bond glowed softly. A gentle warmth spread through her. Then footsteps approached. Queen Astrid emerged from the shadows. Her expression wasn't joyful. It was worried. Very worried. Lyra immediately noticed. What happened? Astrid sat beside her. For several seconds she said nothing. Then she whispered. The mate bond may have saved your life. Lyra frowned. What does that mean? Astrid looked toward the palace, toward the nobles, toward the dangerous game unfolding around them. And for the first time she revealed part of the truth. There are people who fear what you are. What I am. Astrid's eyes filled with sadness. More than you know. Before Lyra could ask another question, a palace horn echoed through the night. The sound silenced the celebration. Every head turned. A royal announcement was about to be made. Kael stepped onto the central platform. The future Alpha stood before the entire kingdom. Thousands watched, waiting, expecting him to publicly accept his mate, expecting him to claim Lyra before everyone. Lyra's heart raced. This was the moment, the beginning of her new life. Kael looked toward her. Their eyes met. For a second, uncertainty flashed across his face. Not rejection, not acceptance, hesitation, dangerous hesitation. And as Damien smiled from the shadows, Lyra felt the first crack appear in her dream. The entire kingdom waited. Thousands of eyes focused on Alpha Prince Kael. The moon hung high above the sacred clearing. Silver light illuminated his face. His expression remained unreadable. Yet Lyra could feel his conflict through the mate bond. His wolf wanted one thing. His mind wanted another. And somewhere in the shadows, Beta Damien watched everything unfold. Patient, confident, certain. As if he already knew how this night would end. Lyra's heart pounded. Every beat carried hope. Every breath carried fear. For years she had belonged nowhere. For years she had watched others find happiness while she stood alone. Now fate itself had chosen her. Surely that meant something. Surely the moon goddess would not unite two souls only to tear them apart. Kael looked at her. For one brief moment she saw warmth in his eyes. The warmth of recognition. The warmth of destiny. Then Damien stepped closer and whispered something into his ear. Nobody else heard it. But Lyra saw Kael's expression change. Saw uncertainty become doubt. Saw doubt become fear. And fear became something far worse. Decision. The prince stepped forward. His voice echoed through the clearing. As future Alpha King, my choices affect the entire kingdom. Silence followed. The crowd listened carefully. Lyra's smile slowly faded. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. Kael continued. A Luna must be strong enough to unite the packs. Nobles nodded. Some already smiled. As if they knew what was coming. A Luna must be accepted by the people. The knot in Lyra's stomach tightened. The mate bond suddenly felt colder. More distant. Kael looked directly at her. His jaw clenched. His wolf fought him. Everyone could see it. But he spoke anyway. I cannot accept this bond. The world stopped. For a second Lyra didn't understand. The words refused to make sense. They hung in the air like a nightmare. Impossible. Unreal. Cruel. Then Kael delivered the final blow. I reject Lyra Frostborn as my mate. Gasps exploded across the clearing. The mate bond shattered. Pain ripped through Lyra's chest. Not physical pain. Something worse. A wound buried deep inside her soul. Her knees nearly buckled. The world blurred. People whispered. Some laughed. Others looked away. Nobody wanted to witness the humiliation. Yet nobody left. Because cruelty often attracted an audience. The bond's destruction felt like being torn apart from the inside. Lyra pressed a trembling hand against her chest. Her breathing became uneven. Tears filled her eyes. But she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Not while half the kingdom celebrated her misery. Across the clearing, Kael looked equally affected. His face had gone pale. His wolf raged beneath the surface. Every instinct screamed that he had made a mistake. Yet he remained where he stood. Unable to undo the damage. Unable to stop what he had started. The nobles erupted with approval. Many applauded openly. Lady Verona smiled wider than anyone. I knew it. Her friends laughed. An Omega becoming Luna. Ridiculous. She should be grateful the prince even looked at her. Each word struck like another knife. Yet Lyra remained standing. Barely. Her pride was all she had left. And she would not surrender it. Not tonight. Not ever. Queen Astrid immediately moved toward her. Concern filled her face. But before she could reach Lyra, Rowan stepped forward. The Alpha King's presence silenced the crowd instantly. Rage burned behind his golden eyes. Not the controlled anger of a ruler. The fury of a father watching his child suffer. Only a handful of people noticed. Only a handful understood. Rowan looked directly at Kael. The disappointment in his gaze hit harder than any punishment. For a moment Kael felt like a child again. Child who had failed. A child who had disappointed the man he admired most. Yet pride prevented him from speaking. Prevented him from apologizing. Prevented him from fixing the mistake. Lyra couldn't stay any longer. He turned away. One step. Then another. Each step hurt. Each breath hurt. The kingdom celebrated behind her while her future collapsed. She reached the edge of the clearing before the first tear finally escaped. Then another. Then another. Years of loneliness returned all at once. Only now it felt worse. Because she had briefly believed things could change. Hope had visited her life. Only to abandon her. Just like everyone else. Hours later the palace slept. Or at least pretended to. The rejection remained the only thing anyone talked about. Servants whispered. Guards speculated. Nobles celebrated. Lyra sat alone in her room. The moonlight spilling through her window seemed colder than usual. She stared at nothing. Thinking. Remembering. Hurting. Questions filled her mind. Why? Why had Kael rejected her? He felt the bond. She knew he did. She had seen it. Then what changed? Who convinced him? And why? Unable to sleep, she left her room. The palace corridors stood empty. Silent. Dark. She wandered aimlessly. Trying to clear her thoughts. Trying to escape the pain. Eventually she reached the western wing. A section rarely used at night. That's when she heard voices. Quiet voices. Secretive voices. Lyra immediately stopped. One of them belonged to Damien. The other belonged to someone she recognized instantly. Lady Verona. Instinct told her to leave. Curiosity forced her to stay. She moved closer. Careful. Silent. Hidden behind a stone pillar. Their conversation became clearer. Verona laughed softly. You handled him perfectly. Damien smirked. I told you I would. Lyra froze. A chill traveled down her spine. Handled him. What did that mean? Damien continued. The prince believes every word. Verona shook her head in amusement. Men are surprisingly easy to manipulate. The blood drained from Lyra's face. Damien leaned against the wall. The forged letters helped. Forged letters. Lyra's heartbeat accelerated. Verona nodded. He truly thinks she's conspiring with outsiders. Damien laughed. He thinks much worse. Silence. Then the beta delivered words that changed everything. The rejection was necessary. Why? Damien's eyes darkened. Because if Lyra remains close to the throne, certain secrets might emerge. Lyra stopped breathing. Secrets? What secrets? Damien lowered his voice. But not enough. Her existence alone is dangerous. The words struck like thunder. Her existence. Dangerous. Not her actions. Not her choices. Her existence. Verona frowned. You still think she's connected to the old bloodline? Damien's smile vanished. For the first time genuine concern appeared on his face. I don't think. He looked around carefully. Then whispered. I know. Lyra's entire body went cold. The old bloodline. The traveler. The mark. Astrid's fear. Everything suddenly connected. Yet before she could process it, Damien revealed something even worse. If Rowan ever tells her the truth, we're finished. Finished. meaning Damien wasn't acting alone. There were others. Powerful others. Dangerous others. And they were terrified of something connected to her. A floorboard creaked beneath Lyra's foot. Teeny. Almost inaudible. Yet Damien heard it. His head snapped toward the darkness. Instantly. His eyes narrowed. Who's there? Lyra's heart nearly stopped. She turned and ran. Rest. Silent. Terrified. Behind her footsteps echoed through the corridor. Damien was following. The hunt had begun. And for the first time in her life, Lyra realized her greatest enemy wasn't fate. It wasn't rejection. It wasn't loneliness. Someone inside the palace wanted her destroyed. And now they knew she was getting close to the truth. As Lyra disappeared into the darkness, Damien stopped chasing. A cold smile spread across his face. He already knew who had been listening. And that changed everything. Because until tonight, Lyra had only been a problem. Now she had become a threat. A threat that needed to be eliminated before she learned the full truth. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, Queen Astrid opened a hidden chest beneath her bed. Inside rested ancient documents, royal seals, bloodline records, proof of Lyra's identity, proof powerful enough to change the kingdom forever. Astrid stared at the documents, then whispered something that sent a chill through the empty room. They're moving sooner than I expected. Outside her window, unseen in the darkness, a hooded assassin watched, waiting, listening, preparing. And before the next moon rose, blood would be spilled. Lyra didn't stop running until her lungs burned. The palace corridors blurred behind her like shifting shadows. Her heartbeat hammered so violently it drowned every other sound. Damien knew. He had seen her. And now she understood something far more dangerous than rejection. She had overheard something she was never meant to hear. She finally collapsed behind an abandoned storage archway. Cold stone pressed against her back. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her mind replayed every word. Her existence is dangerous. The old bloodline. If Rowan tells her the truth, we're finished. Who was we? And why did it feel like her entire life had been built on lies? A distant alarm horn suddenly echoed through the palace. Lyra froze. That wasn't a normal signal. That was a security breach alert. Someone had noticed her escape. Or worse, someone wanted her found. Meanwhile, in the royal wing, Queen Astrid stood over her hidden chest. The ancient documents were gone. Her chest was open. Me. Her breath hitched. No. She stepped forward quickly, searching the floor. Paper fragments. Burn marks. Someone had been here. Someone had taken everything. A shadow moved behind her. Astrid turned sharply. Too late. A blade flashed once. Silence swallowed the room. Lyra felt it before she knew. A strange pressure inside her chest. Pull. Like something inside her had shattered somewhere far away. She pressed a hand to her heart. Dark. Unexplainable. Astrid. The name escaped her lips without reason. Why did she suddenly think of her? Why did it feel like something important had just disappeared? A second later, footsteps thundered in the corridor. Voices. Guards. Search every section. The servant Omega is missing. She knows too much. Lyra's blood turned cold. She knows too much. They weren't just searching for her because of rejection anymore. Something had changed. Something irreversible. She moved again. Silent. Desperate. Her only thought was survival. But as she turned the corner, she stopped. 3 royal guards blocked the corridor. Swords drawn. His locked. Not confused. Not questioning. Certain. One of them spoke. Lyra Frostborn. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't an arrest. This was execution. She stepped backward. Slowly. They advanced. By order of the council, the guard continued. You are to be eliminated. Her breath caught. Eliminated. The guards didn't hesitate. They attacked. Lyra ran. The corridor exploded behind her as steel struck stone. She ducked into a narrow passage. Her instinct screamed. Turn left, then right, downstairs, anywhere. Just survive. Behind her the guards shouted. She's fast. Don't let her escape. Lyra burst through a side door into the outer courtyard, and froze. Rain had begun to fall. Dark, cold. The palace walls loomed like a prison, and beyond them freedom. But the gates were locked. A second group of guards appeared ahead. She was surrounded. Trapped. Her breath shook. Her life had always been painful, always lonely. But she had never felt death this close. One guard raised his blade. End it. Lyra closed her eyes and waited, but the strike never came. A deep roar shook the courtyard. The guards froze. The ground trembled. A massive shadow dropped from the palace roof. Wolf, black as midnight, golden eyes burning. Alpha King Rowan. He landed between Lyra and the guards. Instant silence. Even the rain seemed to hesitate. Rowan didn't speak. He didn't need to. The guards lowered their weapons immediately. One glance from him was enough. Lyra staggered back, confused. Relief and fear collided inside her. Your Majesty. Rowan turned slightly toward her. For a moment his expression softened. Just for a moment. Then hardened again. Go inside, he ordered quietly. I can't. Now. The command hit like thunder. Lyra hesitated, then obeyed. Inside the palace, Rowan moved fast. Too fast. Something had changed in him. The calm Alpha King was gone. Only rage remained. He entered Astrid's chamber. And stopped. The broken chest. The empty documents. The blood on the floor. His jaw tightened. They moved first. Far away, Lyra hid in an unused corridor, shaking, trying to understand what was happening. Why did the entire palace suddenly want her dead? What truth was so dangerous that even Queen Astrid had been killed for it? Her mind drifted back to Kael. The rejection, the humiliation, and then Damien. Everything was connected. But how? A sudden pain struck her stomach. She gasped, falling to her knees. The pain wasn't external. Came from within. Impossible. Her hands trembled as she touched her abdomen. Warmth. Faint energy. Second heartbeat. Her eyes widened. No, that's not possible. The realization hit like a storm. She wasn't alone anymore. Elsewhere, Kael stood on a balcony staring into the night. Damien approached quietly. You did the right thing, Damien said. Kael didn't respond. His wolf was restless, unstable, haunted by the bond he destroyed. I want confirmation, Kael finally said. About what? About her. Damien's eyes flickered. There's nothing left to confirm. But Kael didn't believe him. Not anymore. Because something inside him was changing. Something pulling him back toward her. Deep beneath the palace, a secret chamber opened. Rowan stepped inside. Ancient symbols lined the walls. Hidden vault. One that hadn't been opened in centuries. He placed his hand on the stone seal. And whispered. It's time. The seal cracked open. Inside lay a single object. Crown. Black silver. Ancient. Destroyed history itself. Rowan stared at it. Then spoke softly. She's awake. Outside the vault, unseen, a figure listened. Damien. Smiling. Because now everything was accelerating exactly as planned. Lyra sat alone under the rain. Her life had shattered in every possible direction. Rejection. Betrayal. Hunted. But now, something new existed. Something inside her. Something that changed everything. And in the distance she saw it. A faint light glowing in the sky above the forest. Not natural. Not normal. All. To something older than the kingdom. Older than the Alpha King. Older than even the bloodline they feared. Lyra stood slowly, wiping rain from her face. Her voice barely a whisper. If they want me dead. Her eyes hardened. Then I need to know why. And for the first time since her birth, Lyra stopped running and started hunting the truth. The night Lyra stopped running, the kingdom began falling apart in silence. Rain washed over the palace like a mourning veil. No one noticed when she slipped beyond the eastern gate. No one stopped her, because by then the official story had already changed. Lyra Frostborn was dead. Inside the council chamber, Damien stood beside Kael as the announcement was made. A forged report lay on the table. Burn marks, blood traces, a torn servant cloak. Enough to convince anyone who wanted to believe. The High Council elder spoke firmly. The Omega servant was killed during escape. Murmurs spread instantly. Relief in some voices. Confusion in others. Kael didn't move. His expression didn't change. But inside him, something cracked. Not relief. Not acceptance. Regret. "Show me the body," Kael said suddenly. The room went silent. Damien immediately stepped forward. "That's unnecessary." Kael turned his head slightly. His eyes sharpened. "I didn't ask you." For a brief moment, Damien felt something unfamiliar. Unease. But he smiled anyway. Of course, future Alpha. Still no body was ever shown. Because there wasn't one. Far beyond the kingdom walls, Lyra collapsed beneath a frozen cliff. Her breath came in sharp, broken waves. She had been running for hours. Maybe days. Time no longer mattered. Only survival did. The storm had followed her like a curse. But now, something else pulled her attention. Different. Her hand instinctively moved to her stomach. A faint warmth pulsed beneath her skin. Second pulse answered. Her breath stopped. No. She stared at her trembling hands. Impossible. Unreal. Her body confirmed it before her mind could deny it. She was carrying life. 2 lives. Kael's children. The realization shattered her in a different way than rejection ever had. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was responsibility. She wasn't alone. And she couldn't die. Not now. Not ever. A soft cry echoed in the distance. Lyra snapped her head up. Wolves. Not ordinary ones. Large silhouettes moving through the snow. But they didn't attack. They watched, waiting, as if recognizing her. Then one stepped forward. Massive. Ancient scars across its fur. It lowered its head. Lyra didn't move. The wolf spoke. Not in words. In her mind. "You are late, Moonblood." Her breath caught. Moonblood. The wolf turned. "Come." And then it walked away. Lyra followed. Because she had nothing left to lose. Hours later, she reached a hidden valley. Hidden by mountains. Hidden from the world. And inside it, wolves lived like an ancient forgotten civilization. Not beasts. Not animals. Guardians. Elders stood waiting as she entered. Their eyes locked onto her immediately. Not with curiosity. With recognition. One by one they bowed. Lyra froze. "Why are you bowing to me?" The oldest wolf shifted into human form. A man with silver hair and blind eyes. "We have waited 500 years. Lyra stepped back. "I don't understand." The elder spoke softly. "You carry the first queen's blood." Silence. Heavy. Final. Back in the kingdom, Rowan stood alone in the forbidden vault. The black crown hovered above a pedestal. Ancient magic pulsed through the air. The crown of the first queen. A relic sealed for centuries. Rowan touched it. And visions exploded into his mind. Child in snow. Crescent mark. Kingdom burning. And Lyra standing at the center of it all. He staggered back. "It has begun." Damien watched from the shadows. He wasn't surprised. He was waiting for this moment. Because everything so far had only been preparation. He turned to a hooded figure beside him. "It's time." The figure nodded. "The remaining bloodline." Damien smiled. "All of it." Meanwhile, Kael stood alone on the training grounds. Rain soaked his armor. He gripped his sword tightly. And then, pain struck his chest. The mate bond. Still there. Still alive. Even after rejection. Even after denial. Pulsed stronger than before. Like it refused to die. His wolf whispered inside him. She lives. Kael froze. No. But deep down, he already knew. In the hidden valley Lyra trained. Days passed. Then weeks. Her body changed. Her strength grew. But so did something else. Power she didn't understand. The elders called it awakening. The moon blood lineage responding to survival. One night, under a full moon, her mark ignited. The crescent burned silver across her skin. The valley shook. Wolves howled. And Lyra screamed as something inside her broke open. Not pain. Transformation. When it ended, she stood different. Not servant. Not Omega. Something older. Something feared. Something royal. The elder whispered. The queen has returned. Far away, Rowan knelt before the crown of the first queen. And for the first time in centuries, the crown accepted him. But instead of power, it showed him truth. A truth that made his blood run cold. Lyra wasn't just heir. She was the last key. To something sealed beneath the kingdom itself. Something that should never awaken. Back in the valley, Lyra opened her eyes. And spoke softly. Then I'll take it back. The elders bowed again. Not in respect, but in warning. Because they knew what was coming. Or, not between packs. Not between Alpha and Omega. But between the past. And the future. And Lyra Frostborn was standing exactly in the center of it. The kingdom had already accepted a lie. Lyra Frostborn was dead. A forgotten Omega who vanished into snow and silence. Her name was no longer spoken in the palace halls. Not even whispered. Because fear fades easier when the source is believed to be gone. But what the kingdom didn't know was that death had never taken her. It had only forged her. On the northern horizon, the sky darkened. Not with storm clouds, but with movement. Thousands of wolves. Marching in formation through frozen valleys. Not wild packs. Not scattered beasts. An army. And at its center rode a figure cloaked in white fur. Silver hair flowing like winter light. Ice colder than the storm. Lyra. The kingdom's border guards were the first to see them. First they laughed. Another rogue pack. Send archers. But the laughter died quickly. Because the wolves didn't stop. They didn't hesitate. They advanced like they already owned the land. And when the first arrow was fired, froze midair, suspended, then dropped harmlessly to the ground. Silence followed. The guards stepped back. One whispered, "That's not possible." Then Lyra raised her hand. And the entire front line knelt. Without command. Without resistance. As if their bodies had betrayed their loyalty. Inside the capital, panic spread instantly. Reports flooded the palace. Unknown army approaching. Wolves are bowing to someone. The northern gate is collapsing. Council members shouted over each other. Kael stood still, listening. Then he heard something worse. Name. Lyra Frostborn is leading them. His breath stopped. For the first time since childhood, Alpha Prince Kael felt fear. Not of war. Not of invasion. But of her. Damien watched from the council balcony. But he wasn't alarmed. He was smiling. Because everything was unfolding exactly as planned. Too perfectly. Too clean. He turned to a messenger. Prepare the second phase. The messenger hesitated. The Queen's crown protocol. Damien nodded. Activate it. Lyra entered the capital gates at dawn. No resistance stopped her. No army dared attack. Because every guard who tried felt something inside them freeze. Command older than instinct. A bloodline authority that overrode loyalty. She wasn't invading the kingdom. She was reclaiming something that had already recognized her. Crowds gathered as she passed. People whispered in terror. That's an Omega. No, look at her eyes. She's not human anymore. Lyra didn't stop walking. She didn't look at them. Because she wasn't here for them. She was here for the truth. For Kael. For Damien. For everything that was stolen from her. Inside the palace throne room, Kael stood alone. Waiting. Not as a prince. But as someone facing judgment. The doors opened. And Lyra entered. For a moment, neither spoke. The same silence from years ago returned. But this time it was heavier. Different. Kael took a step forward. Lyra. Her eyes didn't soften. Didn't react. Didn't break. Don't. One word. Cold. Final. Stopped him. Kael swallowed. I thought you were dead. Lyra tilted her head slightly. You wanted me to be. Silence. That landed harder than any sword. Kael's jaw tightened. I was manipulated. I know. That stopped him. You do. Lyra stepped closer. Each step echoed like judgment. I heard everything. Kael's breath slowed. Something inside him cracked again. Then You rejected me. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. It didn't need to. The words carried everything. Pain. Humiliation. Kael flinched. For the first time in his life. Behind him, council members watched in silence. None dared interrupt. Because something about Lyra had changed the air itself. Heavy. Dominant. Royal. Not Omega. Not servant. Something else entirely. Damien finally stepped forward. Smiling. Low. Controlled. Well, isn't this touching? Lyra turned her gaze toward him. And the temperature in the room dropped. You. Damien bowed slightly. Me. Lyra studied him. Then spoke softly. You destroyed my life. He shrugged. Correction. I saved the kingdom. Kael snapped his head toward him. What? Damien didn't look at him. I did what needed to be done. Lyra laughed. It wasn't humor. It was something darker. You're brave, for a dead man walking. A sudden tremor shook the throne room. The windows cracked. Wolves outside howled in unison. Damien's smile faded slightly. What did you say? Lyra raised her hand. And the shadows in the room shifted. Not naturally. Not physically. Something ancient responded to her presence. The truth is coming out. She stepped closer. And when it does, her eyes locked on him. You won't survive it. Outside the palace, the sky darkened again. But this time, not with clouds. With a symbol. A massive crescent moon forming above the kingdom. Visible to every citizen. A mark of awakening. Declaration. The entire kingdom froze. Even Rowan, watching from the tower, whispered. It's begun. Back in the throne room, Kael took another step forward. Lyra, please. That word. Please. It almost broke something inside her. Almost. But she remembered the snow. The rejection. The silence. The humiliation. And the hope that died that night. Her voice softened just slightly. You don't get to ask me for anything anymore. Kael stopped breathing. Then Lyra turned slightly. And spoke one sentence that shattered the entire room. I didn't come back for revenge. I came back for the truth. Damien's eyes narrowed. Kael whispered. What truth? Lyra looked at both of them. And answered. The truth about what I am. Silence. Then she slowly pulled back her sleeve. The crescent mark glowed. Brighter than ever before. The entire throne room went still. Even Damien froze. 'Cause he recognized it now. Not just a mark. Seal. Rowan's voice echoed through a distant chamber as he watched through the ancient crown. She's not just air. His hands trembled slightly. She's the lock itself. Lyra's eyes lifted. And for the first time, the kingdom understood fear. Because she finally said it. I am not your Omega. I am the reason your kingdom still exists. The throne room doors slammed shut. Not by force, but by magic. Lyra's magic. And outside the army knelt. Not waiting for command, but for war. Damien stepped back slowly. For the first time, his confidence cracked. Kael looked between them, confused, shaken, lost, because everything he thought he knew was wrong. And Lyra Frostborn was no longer the girl he rejected. She was something the entire kingdom should have feared from the beginning. The throne room was no longer a place of power. It had become a courtroom, a battlefield, a cage where truths were finally forced into the light. Lyra stood at the center, not moving, not trembling, not waiting. The crescent mark on her skin pulsed faintly, like something alive beneath her flesh. And for the first time in the kingdom's history, no one dared to speak over an Omega. Damien forced a calm smile. But his fingers betrayed him. Slight tremor. Crack in control. "You're making a spectacle," he said. Lyra tilted her head slightly. "No, I'm ending one." The air shifted. Even Kael felt it. Something irreversible was coming. Lyra turned slightly toward the council. "I was rejected as an Omega." Whispers spread instantly. "I was hunted as a threat." Silence tightened. "I was declared dead." Her voice lowered. "But none of you ever asked why." She stepped forward. "One question." Her gaze sharpened. "Who told you I was dangerous?" The room froze. Damien stepped forward quickly. "This is manipulation." But Lyra didn't look at him. Not yet. Instead, she raised her hand. And the throne room doors opened on their own. Heavy footsteps echoed. Chains dragged across marble. Gasps erupted from the nobles. 2 guards entered first. Then another. And then, figure in chains. Lady Verona. The noblewoman's face was pale. Eyes wide. Terrified. She was thrown to her knees. "Please, I didn't know." Lyra looked at her calmly. "You knew enough." Verona shook violently. "I was told to spread rumors, I swear." A wave of shock hit the council. Damien's expression finally cracked. Kael stepped forward sharply. "Who told you?" Verona hesitated. Her eyes flickered toward Damien. That single glance was enough. The entire room understood. Kael turned slowly. "You." Damien raised both hands. "This is ridiculous." Lyra interrupted. "Don't lie." Her voice wasn't loud. But it crushed his words mid-air. Silence followed. Heavy. Suffocating. Final. Lyra walked closer to him. Each step echoed like judgment. "You manipulated the mate bond." Kael froze. "What?" Lyra didn't break eye contact with Damien. "You forged evidence." She stepped again. "You isolated me." Another step. "And you convinced a prince to destroy his own fate." Kael's breathing turned uneven. His wolf roared inside him. Confused. Raging. Damien's calm finally shattered. "You have no proof." Lyra smiled slightly. "That's where you're wrong." She snapped her fingers. The throne room darkened. And then, a projection appeared in the air. Memories. Scenes. Voices. Damien speaking with Verona. Damien forging letters. Damien ordering assassins. Damien discussing the bloodline. Gasps erupted instantly. Kael stumbled back slightly. "No." His voice cracked. "That's not." But it was. Everything. All of it. The betrayal. The lies. The rejection. All engineered. Kael's hands trembled. His wolf screamed inside him. Because now he understood the truth. He hadn't just rejected Lyra. He had been used. Damien backed away slowly. "This is fabricated." Lyra's voice turned colder. "Then explain this." She lifted her hand again. A second memory appeared. Chamber. Queen Astrid. Alive. Holding ancient documents. Speaking urgently. Lyra is the rightful heir. The memory froze. Blood. Blade. Silence. Astrid falling. The entire room erupted in shock. Kael shouted. "She's dead." Lyra nodded once. "Yes." Then she looked at Damien. "Because of him." The council erupted. Kiss. Screaming. Denial. Fear. Damien suddenly pulled a dagger. I won't be judged by an Omega. He lunged. Yes. Deadly. But Lyra didn't move. She didn't need to. The moment he crossed the threshold, the entire room froze. Not physically, spiritually. Every wolf in the throne room dropped to their knees. Even Kael. Even guards. Even Damien midair. All of them forced down by something ancient awakening inside Lyra. Her voice echoed. Controlled. Absolute. You still don't understand what I am. The crescent mark flared. The air shattered with pressure. And Damien dropped to the ground instantly. Unable to breathe. Unable to move. Lyra stepped over him slowly. You didn't just lie to a kingdom. You tried to erase a bloodline. Damien gasped. I did what was necessary. Lyra crouched slightly. And now? Silence. I decide what's necessary. A final surge of power erupted from her. The throne room trembled violently. Walls cracked. The sky outside flashed with silver light. And Damien screamed as his influence shattered. Not death. Worse. Loss of power. Total collapse of control. Kael watched everything silently. His chest felt hollow. Everything he believed. Everything he built. He looked at Lyra. For the first time not as rejected mate. But as something far greater. What are you? Lyra turned slightly toward him. A long silence. Then softly. Someone you should have protected. That hit harder than any punishment. Suddenly the palace doors exploded open. Rowan entered. His presence immediately silenced the chaos. His eyes locked on Lyra. Not fear. Not shock. Recognition. Enough. Everyone turned. Even Lyra. Rowan stepped forward. And said something that froze the entire kingdom. She is not only the heir. She is the last living descendant of the first Wolf Queen. Gasps erupted again. Rowan continued. And the crown you all buried. His gaze sharpened. Responded to her. Kael whispered. The sealed crown. Rowan nodded. It has chosen its rightful bearer. Lyra looked between them. Slowly. Quietly. So that's it. Silence. You feared what I am. Her eyes darkened. But you used me anyway. No one answered. 'Cause no one could. Then came the final blow. Lyra raised her hand. And behind her, 2 children stepped forward. Twin heirs. Silver-eyed. Powerful even in silence. The throne room erupted instantly. Children. Who? Kael froze completely. His breath stopped. Mine. Lyra didn't answer immediately. She just looked at him. And that silence was enough. Kael stumbled forward. Hands shaking. This is real. Lyra's voice was quiet. Yes. They were born after you broke me. That sentence shattered him. Completely. Damien, still on the floor, whispered. This changes nothing. Lyra turned sharply. Oh, it changes everything. She looked at the council. The kingdom. At the throne. And declared. This kingdom doesn't belong to liars. It belongs to truth. The throne room fell silent. Then slowly, one by one, the nobles dropped to their knees. Not forced, not commanded, but surrendered. Because something had shifted forever. Kael stood frozen, watching Lyra, watching the children, watching the truth he destroyed. And for the first time, he understood what regret truly meant. Lyra turned away from him. Not hatred, not anger, something colder. Finality. And as the kingdom knelt, Damien was dragged away screaming. The conspiracy collapsed. The lies burned. The truth took its place. But Lyra didn't smile. Because revenge wasn't her victory. It was only the beginning. And somewhere deep inside the ancient world, something older than prophecy, had just awakened in response to her return. The kingdom did not sleep that night. Knelt. It whispered. Broke. And by dawn, nothing in the capital remained the same. The throne room, once a symbol of alpha dominance, had become something else entirely. Place of reckoning. Place of truth. And at its center stood Lyra. Silent. Unmoved. Watching a kingdom decide whether it deserved to continue existing. Kael had not left. He stood where he had fallen. Still processing everything. Still trying to understand how the world he trusted had turned into this. His mate. His children. His betrayal. His failure. Every breath felt heavier than the last. He finally spoke. Lyra. She didn't turn. Not immediately. That hurt more than rejection. Kael stepped forward slowly. For the first time in his life, he wasn't an alpha prince. Not powerful. Not feared. Just a man who had lost everything. I didn't know, he whispered. Lyra's voice came without emotion. That was your mistake. Silence. Kael swallowed. I can fix this. Now she turned. Her eyes were calm. Come. You can't fix what you destroyed. Each word landed like stone. Kael's hands trembled. I was manipulated. Lyra nodded once. Yes, was. And I suffered anyway. That stopped him completely. Because there was no argument against it. Behind them, Rowan stepped forward. The entire hall quieted instantly. His presence still carried authority. Even now. Even after everything. He looked at Lyra. Not as a ruler. Not as a secret. But as a truth finally revealed. It is time, he said softly. Lyra didn't ask what he meant. She already knew. The ancient doors beneath the throne room opened again. Deeper than the palace. Deeper than history. A hidden chamber revealed itself. Cold air spilled upward. Older than the kingdom itself. Rowan descended first. Lyra followed. Kael hesitated. Then followed anyway. Because he couldn't stop himself. Not anymore. At the bottom of the chamber stood something impossible. A vast circular platform. Surrounded by glowing runes. At its center, a broken throne. Not destroyed. Sealed. Waiting. Rowan stopped. This is where it began. Lyra looked at him. And where it ends. Rowan shook his head. No. Was. Where you begin. He stepped aside. And for the first time Lyra saw it. The truth. Not a crown. Not a throne. But a living seal. Reacting to her presence. The crescent mark on her skin burned brightly. The entire chamber responded. Kael whispered behind her. What is this place? Rowan answered quietly. The origin of your bloodline. Silence. Then Rowan added. And the prison of the first Wolf Queen's power. Lyra stepped forward. The moment her foot touched the platform, the chamber erupted in light. The seal cracked. Ancient energy surged upward. Not violent. Not destructive. Recognizing. Welcoming. Her body trembled slightly. Not pain. Awakening. Kael moved forward instinctively. Lyra, stop. But Rowan held him back. No. Kael turned sharply. She could die. Rowan's voice was calm. She won't. Was. She was always meant for this. Lyra knelt instinctively as the energy wrapped around her. Memories flooded her mind. Not hers. Ancient. Fragmented. A silver-haired queen standing in war. Kingdom burning. A crown sealing something beneath the world. Sacrifice. Wow. A bloodline continued through silence. And then, a voice inside the chamber spoke. Not Rowan. Not Kael. Not human. Welcome home, Moon Queen. Lyra gasped. The crescent mark expanded across her skin in glowing patterns. Her power surged outward. The chamber shook violently. Kael fell to one knee under the pressure. Even Rowan lowered his head. The seal was breaking. Not into chaos. Into return. Then came the final truth. Vision. The first Wolf Queen stood before Lyra. Not as memory. But as presence. Her voice was soft. You were never abandoned. Lyra froze. You were hidden. Was. Because the world feared what you would become. Lyra whispered. What am I? The queen's eyes softened. You are the balance they tried to erase. The vision faded, and Lyra stood alone again. Changed. Completely. The chamber fell silent. The seal stabilized. Not broken. Awakened. Above ground, the kingdom felt it instantly. Pulse. Across every territory, every pack, every alpha, they all felt the same thing. Submission. Not forced. Natural. Inevitable. The return of something ancient. Kael slowly stood, looking at Lyra. No longer confusion, only realization. You were never mine to lose. Lyra looked at him, and for the first time, her expression softened slightly. No, I was never anyone's to control. Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Final. Then Kael whispered, "Can you forgive me?" Lyra didn't answer immediately. She looked at the past. The snow. The rejection. Pain. The children. The truth. And then, she shook her head slightly. Forgiveness isn't what this story is about. Kael closed his eyes. I understand. Rowan stepped forward. The kingdom awaits its ruler. He looked at Lyra. You decide what it becomes. Lyra turned toward the exit. Her children followed silently. The chamber remained behind her. Alive. Awakened. Watching. At the top of the throne hall, the entire kingdom was waiting. Silent. Nervous. Broken. Lyra walked out into the light. And for the first time, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel rejected. She didn't feel lost. She felt inevitable. She stood before the kingdom and spoke one sentence. This ends today. Silence. Then she added, and something better begins. One by one, the entire kingdom knelt, not because they were forced, but because they finally understood. She was not the Omega they cast out. She was the queen they buried. And now, she had returned. Kael watched from behind, not as Alpha Prince, not as mate, but as someone witnessing the rise of a legacy he could never undo. And for the first time, he didn't try to stop it. Lyra turned toward the horizon. Snow began falling again, but this time, it didn't feel like death. Felt like rebirth. And deep beneath the kingdom, something ancient finally opened its eyes. The kingdom believed it had witnessed revenge, but what it truly witnessed was awakening. Lyra Frostborn, once abandoned in snow, once rejected as nothing, now stood as the living embodiment of an ancient prophecy the world tried to erase. She did not rule through fear. She did not rule through force. She ruled because the world finally remembered what she was. Kael remained behind her, silent, carrying a regret too deep for words. Rowan stepped aside, no longer hiding truths, only acknowledging consequences. And somewhere far beneath the kingdom, the first Wolf Queen's legacy fully awakened, signaling that Lyra's rise was not the end of a story, but the beginning of an age the world had forgotten existed. As snow fell gently over the kingdom, Lyra placed her hand on the crown waiting for her, not as a servant, not as an Omega, but as the last Moon Queen. And the world bowed.